Well, that was a James Gunn movie. James Gunn's Superman movie comes out this weekend, July 11th. Look up. I am looking down. Everyone who thought I was not going to like this movie. Well, if you were banking on that to be the case, you can take that check to the bank and you can cash it. I did not like this movie. I wanted to. I gave it a shot. I watched it. This was just not for me. And that's fine. That is totally fine. If you love this movie, if you walked out of it going, that's the Superman I wanted, more power to you. I'm happy for you. Truly. There were very few things in this movie that worked for me. So, here's what I'm going to do. For anyone who's concerned about this, for anyone who's curious about this, for anyone who just wants to know, spoilers, whatever, I will provide them here. The movie opens up in what some would call a Star Warsian fashion, where you get lines of dialogue over the Antarctic stating 3 centuries ago, metahumans came to the world, da-da-da. 3 decades ago, a Kryptonian ship landed on Earth, and 2 people in Kansas adopted the baby inside the ship. How the logistics of that panned out, couldn't tell you. And then it goes into 3 years ago, this guy revealed himself to be Superman. Like, it's literally just all dialogue across the screen. And then it says 3 minutes ago he just lost his first fight against the Hammer of Barovia. And then you see the beginning of the movie, and Superman crashes into the snow, and then Krypto takes him to the fortress. And it's there we meet the robots. And we all know who voices the robots. Michael Rooker, Paul Clementieff, a couple other people, I think. I think Jennifer Holland voices one. And, you also get his parents, too. His Kryptonian parents, played by, of course, Jor-El's Bradley Cooper. That was confirmed. That's I can confirm that. That's the thing. The fortress looks cool. Like, it looks cool, I guess. It's fine, Nothing to really gawk at. But they kind of go through what you've seen in the sneak peek. He heals himself by that super solar telescope thing, whatever. And then he flies back to Metropolis to face down against the Hammer of Barovia and promptly gets his ass kicked a second time. But then you find out, Lex Luthor is behind the whole thing. Go figure. Because Lex Luthor is, the big bad of the movie. In more than one way. He's created a pocket dimension. There's that. But yeah, he's the one who ordered the Hammer of Barovia to take out Superman, and he's controlling the Hammer of Barovia. And that's how you see the Hammer of Barovia promptly throw him around and into the ground. I can't tell you guys how predictable this movie is. I thought Jurassic World Rebirth was predictable. Oh my god, this one is just as, if not more, predictable. Wow. So after that, we get the reveal of the Hammer of Barovia. Oh, bait and switch, big surprise. It's not the Hammer of Barovia. There's no one under that suit except Ultraman. Ultraman doesn't say a word throughout the entire movie. At all. He has no dialogue whatsoever. But here's another thing. How did Lex find the fortress? Well, guess what, guys? The engineer was tailing Superman the entire time he was flying back home. And that's how Lex finds the fortress. Shock, shock, surprise, surprise! And then we cut to the Daily Planet. Clark walks in, he sees Perry. Perry tells him he's late. He sees Lombard. Lombard calls him a loser. And we don't get that clip that they show him where you're a loser. No, he just goes, hey, Steve. I could go on. I really could. This is so ingrained in my memory. I wish I didn't have to. But Like, it's just so. I think about this movie and I laugh, and not in the funny I had a good time way, but I just laugh at the amount of times I just whispered, "What the fuck" to myself, because this movie to me was a joke. We have turned Superman into a joke. He is back to joke character status. But that's not to say that anyone in the cast didn't do a good job with what they were handed to do. David Cornsweet, he's fine as Superman. I would actually say Rachel Brosnahan is actually really great as Lois Lane. She's arguably the best thing in the movie, and I've kind of thought that would be the case going into the movie, and I feel confident saying that coming out of the movie. Um, Jimmy Olsen is kind of a player, so there's that. He kind of like gets all the girls. No one really knows why or how. He just does. And as far as Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, yikes. That was one of the most base level, uninspired, mustache twirling, typical villains I have ever seen in a superhero movie. I mean, the movie moves along. You get the conversation between Lois and Clark in her apartment. They kind of make fun at the fact of like, yeah, you know, we fooled him good at the Daily Planet. Ha ha. Oh, let's have our interview. And that's basically what kind of makes or breaks their relationship, is that interview that happens. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, Lex Luthor manages to break into the Fortress of Solitude. There's that. How? Oh, we'll get there. But I bet you probably already know, because it's pretty obvious. So he breaks in. The engineer goes to Superman's computer after they tear apart the robots, and they find the message from his parents, because that's a thing. Like, Superman tells Lois, "Oh, you know, my parents sent me here to, you know, be good and, you know, help out humanity and be there for humanity and, you know, be a hero to humanity." Well, okay, yeah, the engineer, the thing is the message is kind of broken, and Superman doesn't know what the other half of the message is. Well, once Lex Luthor and the engineer and Ultraman and, oh god, Eve Tessmacher break in, the engineer hacks his computer somehow an Earth-based character with Earth-based technology hacks into a Kryptonian computer and deciphers the message. How Earth technology was able to hack Kryptonian technology is beyond me, but, you know, it's neither here nor there. But she gets the rest of the message, and here's something funny. Here's something really funny. So, Jor-El and Lara send Clark to Earth to help humanity, but also to conquer it. When I heard the rest of this message, because this is what Lex's plan is, you can literally see Lex's plan playing out through the entirety of the movie. It's so spoon-fed it isn't even funny. He is ruining Superman's reputation, and the biggest, like, boom to his reputation, he sets a kaiju on Metropolis to keep Superman busy, and that's also when we get the introduction of the Justice Gang, and they have the goofiest theme, and Nathan Fillion talks way too much. Mr. Terrific's cool. That's great. Hawk Girl screeches like an actual hawk, and it is by far one of the most annoying things I've ever heard in a movie. Oh my god. Like, I like Isabella Merced just fine, and when she's talking like a normal human, that's all great. But she screeches like a hawk, and it's fucking annoying. Oh my god. But Luthor breaks this message for the world to see. And Superman is now questioned as like, oh, is he actually here to conquer us? Oh no. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure in a lot of other mediums, not just movies, but comic books, animated series, Jor-El and Lara send their baby son Kal-El off to Earth so he can survive and he can be a beacon of hope and a bridge between peoples. Da 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 da. Like, he's sent there to survive and be the best that he can be. Oh no! James Gunn was like, hold my beer, I'm gonna take some notes from Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, no. This version of Superman was sent here to conquer Earth. And I bet you, donuts to dollars, all the people who hemmed, hawed, cried, foul at all the comic book inaccuracies throughout Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman are probably just going to go, well, by the end of this movie, he's for humanity, so it doesn't matter. We're just going to hand wave that shit. When I heard that message, when I heard it in its entirety, I audibly laughed out loud. It was the one time in the theater I actually did laugh. And let me tell you something else, guys. This movie is riddled with James Gunn humor, and I didn't laugh hardly ever. And when I did, it was in shock and awe because I had to, again, say to myself, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like when Superman is fighting the Hammer of Barovia, you have Eve Tessmacher taking selfies and shit. Because that's a normal thing people do in this world, I guess. I don't know. Anyway. Well, once that message gets blasted on the airwaves after Superman is taken down the kaiju with the rest of the Justice Gang and they all come down and land and Superman parades the kids around and shit. Oh, he also goes out of his way to like save a squirrel and a dog and a couple other people and gives them the whole, are you okay, miss? And he says, good gosh. Like, again, I think David Cornsweet was fine as Superman. But he was fine in the sense of like, yeah, he's playing a corny Superman. And I just don't like a corny Superman. It's that simple. It's really that simple. You want to come down and jump my throat for it? Sure. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I really don't care. This is just not my speed. This version of Superman, not really my speed. Nope. And he's like that throughout the majority of the movie too. It's very quick-witted and very like, haha, I said it to make you laugh. James Gunn, Joss Whedon, Taika Waititi, they all have this really annoying trope of like having sentimental moments completely undercut by humor, and that is something that happens throughout this movie in the most abrasive way possible. All throughout. I was hoping that he would dial back the humor, and boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. That's on me, I guess. That's on me for putting faith in James Gunn into thinking he would actually dial this back and take this a little bit seriously. No. I've seen a lot of people say this is like a comic book film. This is like a comic book come to life. And I'm like, well, which kind of comic book? The kind that make you laugh because of how ridiculous they are, or the kind that touch your soul because they actually connect with you? I'm going to go with the former, not the latter. Because this was a big, ridiculous, non-stop motion picture. Like, yeah, it's Silver Age in some senses. Yeah, it pulls from All-Star Superman, but it's got James Gunn's fingerprints all over it. And it's also got, wait for it, Richard Donner's fingerprints too, because this movie is basically 1978 Redux. With a smidge of Quest for Peace. Just a smidge. When I say that the John Williams theme was used from moment one till the end credits, I mean it. Oh my god, does this film just lack an identity? I was so disappointed at the fact that, no, instead of doing like an original score like Hans Zimmer did for Man of Steel, no. John Murphy and David Fleming were like, let's just use the Williams theme, but let's add an electric guitar. Let's make it a little bit more orchestral in certain spots. But it's still literally just the John Williams theme playing throughout the movie when he does heroic things. I'm just like, oh, here we go again. Yeah. So, Superman gets detained by the government, and the government hands the authority over to Lex Luthor, who has this, like, company or this, like, subsect in the government called, like, Planet Watch or something. It's something really stupid. But he puts him in a pocket dimension. He has him housed in this glass casing with Metamorpho, and he forces Metamorpho to turn his hand into kryptonite to keep Superman weak. So that's a thing that happens. And like kryptonite actually burns him too. Like when he gets really close to it, it looks like his skin's actually boiling. I was like, oh, that's a nice touch. Like there were things in this movie that I did like, don't get me wrong. The bad for me just really outweighs the good, for sure. Like, when I think of this movie, I gotta be brutally honest. I don't think of, like, a Justice League episode, I don't think of an episode of Superman the Animated Series. I gotta be honest, I think of Batman and Robin. That's how campy I think this movie is. No joke. Like, you have Steve Lombard making these really crass, stupid jokes. Jimmy Olsen is kind of a playboy, and he's kind of like flabbergasted the fact he's a playboy. It's almost like James Gunn didn't really know what to do with Jimmy Olsen outside of like maybe make him a photographer. That would have been nice, but no, he just works at the planet and he gets girls' numbers. And oh, here's a fun twist: he's apparently like texting back and forth with Eve Tessmacher, and Eve like wants to break up with Lex Luthor and get together with Jimmy Olsen, but Jimmy has her in his phone as Mutant Toes. I used to do stuff like that in high school when I would break up with someone and give them some goofy nickname in my phone. That way I know it was them. That's some shit you would do in high school. This was written by a grown man in his 50s. I'm I just wasn't impressed. Like everything about this film to me just made me just cringe, made me just kind of roll my eyes. Like the only good thing I truly think was in this movie was David Corenswet to an extent and Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan. Like they were good. They were good with what they were handed to do for the most part. There are still some line deliveries and some explanation and some what's the word here? Exposition. There we go. That is just super ham-fisted, down your throat, spoon-fed. And of course, you know, Crypto has a part to play. He messes up the engineer. He causes all sorts of mayhem. And of course, the audience I was with, they fucking ate it up. And it's like, cool. At least the audience was happy. I was in the minority. I can admit that I'm in the minority on this, clearly, because this movie has like an 80-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's getting rave reviews from all the critics, but then again, that's really no surprise because they meat ride James Gunn just as much as his online followers do. Oh, by the way, speaking of online followers, Lex Luthor is manipulating social media also to make Superman look bad by way of monkeys in the pocket dimension who are constantly clacking away at their keyboards, tweeting out hashtags of like super scum, super shit, the dumbest shit imaginable. Like mind controlled monkeys. I'd heard that this may have been in the movie, and I was like, dear God, I hope that isn't true. And then it ended up being true, and I was like, only James Gunn could come up with something that fucking stupid. And it was. It was fucking stupid. In my humble opinion. So then, Lex Luthor, being the one in control of Superman's life and getting questions from him, wondering if he's going to try and take over the planet, proceeds to take the guy who helped Superman up out of the crater that Ultraman threw him into. Yeah. Luthor, like, plays Russian roulette with that guy and, like, threatens Superman. Like, hey, you better tell me what I want to know or I'm going to, like, play Russian roulette with this guy. Kills him with the second round. Second round of Russian roulette just offs this guy. And you see Superman cry. It's like, okay, I get it. Superman is very much all for life in this film. And that's abundantly clear. Didn't have a problem with that. But they beat you over the head with it. They truly go out of their way to beat you over the head with the fact that this Superman is all about, like, preserving life. And, like, I can understand that, and I can respect it, but they just really went overboard with it this time around. And I think there's a much more subtle way of doing it. Had a much more seasoned writer done something with it. But I digress. That's, again, just my opinion. Anyway. Once... and the way they find out that Superman is in a pocket dimension because Lois Lane has a source at the government and she doesn't get any answers on where he's being held. So Jimmy Olsen's like, I might have a source. And that's how you find out him and Eve Tessmacher are texting back and forth. And she lets him know, like, yeah, he's in a pocket dimension. And Jimmy's like, Lois, he's in a pocket dimension. And without even thinking about it, Lois Lane, the most pristine reporter at the Daily Planet, doesn't even question it. Like, what? He's in a pocket dimension? She just takes it, runs with it. And then we see the Hall of Justice. Yep, that's right. The Hall of Justice is in this movie, but it belongs to the Justice Gang. You see Mr. Terrific clacking away on his keyboard. You see hot girl reading a newspaper, and you see Nathan Fillion eating some yogurt. And she's like, you guys are going to help save him, right? He's your friend. And they're like, not really. He's not really one of us. So, no. But Mr. Terrific ends up helping her anyway. But not because it's the right thing to do, only because he wants to piss off Guy Gardner. Yeah. Rolled my eyes at that one. Oh, and that clip of him doing the garage door thing, opening up to get the T-sphere, that's in the movie. I thought that was like a car ad clip. Oh no, that's in the movie. I was like, oh, lovely. So they break in the top pocket dimension, and Metamorpho. Okay, if I loved anything in this movie of the heroes outside of Mr. Terrific, it was Metamorpho. I love Metamorpho. Metamorpho was great. They used Metamorpho pretty perfectly. I will say he is kind of a dingus towards the end of the movie, but the way he was depicted for the most part was pretty spot on. But him and Metamorpho save Baby Joey because Baby Joey's being held captive in the same exact pocket dimension. Crypto's being held there too. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Superman like brazenly breaks into Luthor Corps and like demands that Luthor tells him where his dog is, and it's all a ploy for Lex Luthor to make Superman look worse. And Eve's, live streaming the whole thing, and it's going to all these different news outlets. I did, however, when I noticed Christopher Reeve's son, I forget his name, saw him, and I was like, oh, there he is. Yeah, cool. That was a nice Easter egg. But they break out of the pocket dimension. It fucking folds in on itself. And, Mr. Terrific's like, damn, Luthor, you shouldn't be playing with pocket dimensions because at the center of them is a black hole. Like, honestly, the logistics and the reality of how that pocket dimension even works makes absolutely zero sense. I'm sure you read it on paper and when you hear the lines out loud, you're like, oh, okay, it kind of tracks. When you actually really start to think about it, you're like, that's not how a black hole works. It's not how any of this works. None of this should work. But there's even a point in the movie where like Superman is so depressed at the fact that like he finds out that his family, like his Kryptonian heritage, is like, oh no, they sent you here to be a destroyer. They sent you here to be a conqueror. Like he's so depressed he doesn't even help the Justice Gang fight this big purple imp thing. Because yeah, that's what that is. That's not Solaris. That's not a Brainiac. That's literally just this interdimensional imp that popped up out of nowhere. And Superman just kind of hand waves it and goes, yeah, the Justice Gang will take care of it. What? He's like, I gotta go find my dog. I was like, okay, dude. Okay, I get it. I get it. It amazes me that a lot of the plot contingents on the fact that like Superman is just trying to get this dog under control. And oh man, he's unruly. I will say, Crypto was very unruly. Like if you've seen the clips and you've seen the sneak peek, it's a lot like that in the rest of the film. Very unruly dog, but it's not his dog, and I'll get to that. Oh boy, this plot. Okay, you know what? Okay, there were some really solid action sequences. I will give it that. There's a sweet spot there with Mr. Terrific and how he uses his T-spheres. That's great. There's beautiful stuff going on with Metamorpho. That's great too. Really like that. There's even some Superman shots where I was like, all right, cool. But I would also like to just point this out too. Every bad piece of footage you saw in a trailer, it looks worse on the big screen. It is truly one of the most horrendous, like some of the worst looking visual effects I've ever seen in a superhero movie. I didn't think it could get worse after The Flash, but it's up there. It's pretty close, and I think it has a lot to do with the fisheye lens. I think the fisheye lens distorts certain things in certain ways, and it just makes it look really bad. It just looks bad. I was not a fan. No, was not a fan at all. Anyway, moving along. They break out of the pocket dimension. They figure out Lex is behind it all. Go figure. And then when Eve promptly, like when he breaks out of the pocket dimension, like Luthor goes into this straight hiss fit, like this straight wah wah, I didn't get my way, loud screaming fit, almost like that moment in Superman Returns where Kevin Spacey yells, "No, no!" It's like that dialed up to 11, but worse. I think for me, Nicholas Holt, like it didn't work. Like his version of Lex Luthor just didn't work for me. Like he's intentionally kind of an asshole. He like throws shit on the floor just to make people pick it up, and then puts it on the floor again to make them pick it up again. He like throws shit at Eve to get her out of the door. Like it's he's just an asshole. Like he's not even smart about it. He's just an asshole. And I was like, all right, whatever, I guess. But as Eve is sending all this information to Jimmy, like, hey, you know, if I do this, we're gonna be together forever, right? And Jimmy just kind of like stays quiet. It's actually really awkward. It's superbly awkward. And it's played for laughs. Like, people laughed. Didn't work for me. Wasn't a fan of that shit. Nope. But then Luthor finds out because Ultraman has like this super hearing. Gee, I wonder why. And they throw her in the pocket dimension too. But not before she could send Jimmy a bunch of damn near nude selfies. But behind these nude selfies are all of Lex's plan. From staging this war between Barovia and Junipar, if I'm even pronouncing that right. I'm probably not, but I don't really care. Like, he stages this war, and then here's the big kick, guys. You are led to believe that Luthor stages this war so he can turn Junipar into an area of land called Luthoria. Yeah, guys, remember when 1978 Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor was all about real estate? Well, guess what? It's not quite real estate, it's country state. Like, I was so beside myself when I saw that. I was like, are you fucking serious? We're doing this again. Really? Again. At that point, I threw my hands up in the air and I was like, all right, nope, this is not for me at all. Nope. Couldn't hack it. I'm shocked I there was actually at one point I did contemplate just getting up and walking out. I was man. Anyway. Oh man. So after that whole Shabbat happens, Superman is like super weak from the kryptonite poisoning. Lois Lane flies him to the Kent farm and he rests up for like a day or two. Well, when they broke the pocket dimension portal thing, it causes some kind of damage, and Luthor, in his hubris, decides to like amplify that and just, say, to hell with it. Let the pocket dimension just rip open into the planet. No big deal. Let's start with Metropolis. Yeah. Intentionally does it on purpose. So Superman takes it upon himself to like, rest up, and Lois gets the information from Jimmy and blah, 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 blah. And, okay. You don't get too much of the Kents in this. I didn't even really like the way they depicted Martha and John Kent because they kind of come off as country bumpkins. I was like, okay, that's a choice. I suppose you really want to hammer home the Midwestern farm family. Go for it. I will just say that not every farmer comes off like a country bumpkin. But I will say, there's a conversation that happens between John and Clark outside where Clark confides into John and he goes, I thought I was sent here for a good reason, and now I'm questioning whether or not I'm actually, like, is what I'm doing even worth it to begin with? And that's when John tells him, your choices, your actions, that's what makes you who you are. And I was like, you know what? For all the flaws, and believe me, I think this movie is flawed to high heaven, that was a good moment. That was one shred of great writing in a very poorly written script. Oh my goodness. Because after this, Ma Kent comes out and says, Clark, there's something on the tube you might want to watch. And Barovia is about to go to war with Junipar, but Mr. Terrific radios Superman and says, I need your help to stop this in Metropolis, because Luthor's tearing a hole in the fabric of reality, blah, 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 blah. And Superman's like, he doesn't outright say it's a job for Superman, but then you get the point where Martha goes, cleaned your boots, I'll go get them for you. So then he promptly goes to help Mr. Terrific with this, and then at this point we get a pretty solid fight between the Engineer, Ultraman, Terrific, and Superman, even though Mr. Terrific is taken out almost instantly. There's a really great scene of the Engineer putting her nanites into Superman and to get them out of his system, because like literally their plan is to just suffocate Superman. He flies them up into the atmosphere and then cannonballs them down. And so the Engineer is left with no choice but to like take the nanites out, otherwise she will die. So they crash land into a sewage pipe, sewage drain, you know, sewers underneath Metropolis, whatever. She's unconscious. Well, here's the reveal for Ultraman. Guess what, guys? He ain't from a pocket dimension. Nope. Want to know how Lex Luthor got into the Fortress of Solitude? Want to know how Ultraman had ultra hearing? It's because he's a clone of Superman. I called it. I knew it. I said, I bet you donuts to dollars it's David Cornsweat underneath that Ultraman mask, and I was right. It's a fucking clone. They basically did Bizarro without calling him Bizarro. I was like, oh, called that. And they fight, and like the entire time, like Lex is speaking through these robotic things that are kind of telling the clone what to do. Like, it really makes no sense at all, like whatsoever. Like how the logistics of the clone work with it literally just makes no fucking sense at all. Like, but like Luthor and his team of scientist people are like controlling the clone and beating the shit out of Superman, and as this pocket dimension is tearing itself apart and a black hole is literally coming to where the Earth is, Superman has like Ultraman, and he like pops his shoulder out of place and throws Ultraman into like some debris, and Ultraman flies into the black hole. Yep. So that's how that fight ends. Yep. Meanwhile, in Barovia and Jonapar, all these people are chanting for Superman, Superman, Superman. Well, they don't get Superman. They get some of the Justice Gang and Metamorpho. They come and stop the war, save the day. You see a bunch of Green Lantern middle fingers. It's all... yeah. But Metamorpho had a couple cool action sequences during that. That was cool. Yeah. You know, it was fun for the most part. Oh, and Hawkgirl just brazenly tackles the president of Barovia inside his office and flies him out and is screeching like a hawk. And he's like, oh, you won't kill me. I'm, you know, so-and-so, da-da-da-da. And she just goes, yeah, I'm not Superman, and just drops this guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we're just totally fine with heroes killing political officials. Cool. Awesome. Great. Because that makes sense. As all this is happening, Jimmy is typing away on the computer inside the T-Sphere, and Lois Lane is ousting Lex Luthor for all his evil machinations, etc., etc. And Luthor's like, okay, wrap it up. And they're going to try and escape through the pocket dimension, and Superman, Krypto, and Mr. Terrific fly through this little piece that pops out of Luthor core, and they promptly stop him, and then you get a montage of Krypto dragging Lex Luthor around and throwing him around like a rag doll. Because, yeah. Needless to say, I was like, well, that's not surprising. And then Superman, like Lex Luthor just gives him this, like, 1-2 of, like, you know what? I did everything, not because I wanted to take over land, but because I wanted to destroy you. and Superman's just like, and the reason is because you're an alien, because you're not one of us, and Superman's just like, dude, I am who I am because I like the most beautiful thing about me is I'm human. I feel, I love, I fear. Like you get this extenuated little speech from Superman in this room full of people who have just been trying to kill him the entire time, and it's like, oh, okay, he's a Superman who makes speeches. That's nice. So when everything's all said and done, the pocket dimension gets closed. Luthor gets thrown in Belle Reve, of all places. Oh, I forgot to mention there's a Peacemaker cameo. Didn't care about that. That's probably why I didn't mention it. But yeah, John Cena's in this movie for like a minute, being interviewed. No big deal. But the movie ends. Superman's inside the Fortress of Solitude. His robots are all, put back together. How? I don't know. They don't explain that. Guess they kind of just hand wave that. And you hear a crash, and you see Supergirl. That's right, Millie Alcock's in the movie. You see her in her Supergirl outfit. And she stumbles in drunk. And Superman makes mention to his robots, like as soon as Kara steps in, she's like, "Hey, cuz, where's my dog?" And Krypto immediately like flies over to her and just starts like throwing her around like he threw Luthor around. And then the robot's like, "Yeah, that's probably why he's unruly." And then she takes Krypto and flies off, and Superman's like, yeah, she goes to other planets that have red suns because she can't get drunk under a yellow sun. So Supergirl's an alcoholic in the DC universe. That's cool, I guess. Then the movie ends. Oh, well, yeah, there's also that last little kiss of like Superman and Lois, because when everything's all said and done and Superman saves the day, Lois Lane is like, they're there on the ground and the monkeys from the pocket dimension are rolling around and shit. And Superman is like there behind her. And he's like, Miss Lane, I thought we could do an interview. And they totally sneak off and they just fly up in this empty building and they make out. And then Perry looks inside and goes, how long have they been hooking up? And Jimmy goes, about 3 months. How Jimmy Olsen knew that, I don't know. Oh, wait, no. Because Cat Grant and Lois Lane have like a conversation. And what happened to that guy you were talking to? And Lois is like kind of wishy-washy about it because after they have their conversation, they're literally just kind of divided on like whether or not Superman was doing the right thing by stopping a war in Barovia. Yeah, that's the schism in their relationship, whether or not he did the right thing and whether or not he acted unilaterally. You know, stuff you've probably seen in another Superman movie before. Just written better. Anyway, they kiss, and at some point when Superman flies off to go find his dog, he says, Lois, I love you. And then at some point later on in the movie, when Lois goes to save him, she tells Mr. Terrific, yeah, I almost broke up with him. But then at the end of the movie, she's like, I love you too, Clark. I was like, oh, that's cute. The movie ends with Superman sitting in his chair listening to some indie band I don't really know, and he's playing footage of his family, and it's not the Kryptonian family. Nope. It's literally home video footage of him as a child with the Kents. Credits roll. There's one mid-credit scene of him and Krypto on the moon. Then the credits roll completely, and then you get a scene of Superman and Mr. Terrific looking at a building, and it's kind of like little off to the side. It's not exactly perfect. And Superman's like, well, you could have maybe made it almost exact. And Mr. Terrific just kind of walks off and kicks rock. Like literally, he kicks rocks and kind of hand waves it. And Superman just goes, man, I can be such a jerk sometimes. When I say I didn't like this movie, I really didn't like this movie. Between the over extenuated use of the John Williams theme, between the corny version of Superman that I am just not a fan of, between the James Gunn humor that is littered throughout this movie, between the lackluster, awful performance of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and the predictable plot of this film through and through, some of the ugliest camera angles, some really sloppy CGI. I have no idea where I would even rank this. I'll tell you one thing, this movie doesn't hold a candle to Man of Steel in almost any regard. I think Man of Steel is hands down a much better Superman movie. See, even my cat agrees. My cat even agrees with me. Yeah, she agrees. Huh, Kiki? Huh. Come here. She's not crypto, but she'll work. But yeah, like I wasn't a fan. Really wasn't a fan. It really felt like this film just goes through, okay, we need to do a checkbox of everything Superman fans want in a Superman movie. Oh, okay. Bright colors. Oh, okay. John Williams theme redux. Oh, okay. Slight real estate nod plot from the 78 movie. Oh, Lex Luthor screaming his head off. Check mark. Oh, Superman being kind of cornball. Check mark. Lois Lane and Superman sharing a kiss. Check mark. Literally, it's Superman check mark the movie. I was not a fan of this movie, but I'm clearly in the minority because the audience I was in, they had a great time with it. I didn't. I mean, I could be an asshole and say not my Superman, but I'm just going to put it simply, this movie just wasn't for me. Was not for me. And if anything, I've told you, you know, if that interests you, if that abstains you from wanting to see this movie, don't blame me at all. At all. At all. But yeah, that is my almost 40-minute review of this film in a nutshell. I really didn't like a lot of what I saw. And you know what? That's fine. I'm not, like, mad. I'm disappointed more than anything. And it really doesn't give me much faith for what is to come in the pipeline. Like, the fact that, like, Supergirl's played up to be an alcoholic in this film kind of makes me hesitant about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Well, I guess it's just called Supergirl now. I'm actually really disappointed that the Batman Part 2 got sidelined for this. That is very disappointing because this is just... I hate to say it, but it really is like Superman the movie Redux with a smidge of Quest for Peace with the tonality of Batman and Robin. That's where I'm at with this. Honest to God, that's how I feel. But I'm, that's where I'm at. If you feel the same way, let me know. If you vehemently disagree, by all means, let me know. Just don't be a jerk about it. But anyway, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Really helps me out. Would really appreciate it. Leave a comment. Follow me on the socials. Vero Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can find me anywhere, @Unfiltered. And this is arguably probably my most longest review because I literally just went through the movie pretty spaciously. But again, things I liked: Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, Anthony Kerrigan, Metamorpho. To an extent, David Cornsweet as Clark Kent and Superman, even though I think he's way too emotional and way too cornball. But that's what he was directed to play, and I think he did a fine job of it. Wasn't a fan of Lex Luthor at all. The plot, again, superbly predictable. And again, just some of the visual cues of this movie, the overtly bright nature, just not for me. Like, this movie just really was not for me. And I've told people this before. Like, I already got my Superman movie, and I just wanted a good story. I don't even think I got that. And that's just me. If you think it's a good story, more power to you, like I said. But anyway, I think that's a great spot to say farewell. Take care. Much love. Bye-bye.